The night clung to the air like a damp, musty blanket, thick with the scent of decaying leaves and a strange metallic tang. Looming against the bruised violet sky, the Blackwood Manor seemed to breathe, its crooked chimney exhaling thin wisps of smoke like a dying gasp. A low, mournful howl, not quite a wolf's and far too sad to be wind, slithered from the mansion's broken windows, causing the Mystery Machine's headlights to flicker nervously. This was the home of Silas Blackwood, a reclusive industrialist known as the Miser of Blackwood Manor, who, legend had it, had hoarded a multi-million-dollar fortune within its walls before vanishing, only to have his ghost return to protect his wealth. "Like, this place gives me the creeps, Scoob," Shaggy whispered, his voice trembling as he clutched a family-sized bag of Scooby snacks. Scooby-Doo whimpered in agreement, his brown eyes wide with fear as he huddled closer. "Ghost," he stammered, his teeth chattering in a rhythm that could have been a drum solo. "Don't be so dramatic, you two," Velma said, pushing her glasses up her nose as she examined a peeling newspaper clipping. "It says here that Blackwood was a notoriously frugal man, obsessed with saving money. He practically invented the concept of saving before you spend. The legend says his ghost comes back to punish those with poor financial discipline." Daphne's face was a study in fascination. "A ghost who's a financial advisor? Now that's a new one. But still, the story says he's guarding a fortune. We've got to be careful. A lot of people fall for get-rich-quick scams or false promises of easy money." Fred, ever the leader, tapped a finger on the wheel. "That's what makes this case so interesting. It's a classic haunted house, but the motive is all about money. I have a feeling the treasure isn't what it seems. We need to be on the lookout for anything that looks too good to be true." A chilling gust of wind rattled the car, and from the mansion, a single light flickered on in an upstairs window, casting a lonely, cold glow. A shadow of a gaunt, top-hatted figure passed by the glass, holding what looked like a sack filled with coins. The scent of old paper and dust suddenly intensified, mixing with a phantom aroma of something sweet and minty, like freshly printed currency. The hair on the back of everyone's neck stood up. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic thumping of their own terrified hearts. Scooby and Shaggy let out a synchronized yelp, and the Mystery Machine's engine revved to life on its own as if desperate to escape. The million-dollar mystery was about to begin, and the gang had just enough curiosity to risk getting a lecture on economics from a ghost. The heavy, ornate doors of Blackwood Manor groaned open with a sound like a coffin lid scraping against stone, revealing a grand foyer cloaked in shadow and history. Despite its decay, the space held a ghost of its former opulence: a majestic, sweeping staircase, a cracked marble floor, and a large, dusty chandelier that swayed ominously in the draft. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, mothballs, and a subtle, unsettling aroma of ink, as if someone had just finished writing a very long letter. Like, wow, this place is bigger than the inside of my wallet after I buy a double-decker supersized pizza and a 3-liter soda, Shaggy said, patting his empty pockets with a mournful sigh. "Man, I wish I'd saved some of that money. I'm already starving." "That's exactly what I'm talking about, Shaggy," Velma said, pulling a small, crisp notepad from her bag. "You've got to think about a budget. If you save a little now, you can buy more later." She scribbled something down. "Our budget for this investigation is exactly 0, so we need to be resourceful." Fred, his chin high, surveyed the room. "Okay, gang, let's fan out. Velma, you check the archives and any study areas. Daphne, you and I will look at the architecture and design for any secret passages. And Scooby and Shaggy, you two check the kitchen for, clues." "Roria, good idea." Scooby barked, his tail wagging for the first time since they arrived. They scampered off, the sound of their footsteps echoing hollowly through the manor. As Fred and Daphne moved toward the grand staircase, a cold breeze snaked around them. Suddenly, A low, guttural humming sound started, seemingly from the very walls. It grew louder, a deep, resonating thrumming that vibrated through the floor. Fred frowned, running a hand along the wall. "I don't get it. This is old wood, but it feels like there's something hollow behind it." Meanwhile, Velma had found a small study off the foyer. It was crammed with books and dusty, antiquated financial ledgers. As she examined one, the pages seemed to glow faintly with a phosphorescent light. She squinted, adjusting her glasses. On one page, she could just make out a cryptic entry. 241B1, 55% yield, 3 Sigma event. She muttered to herself, "That's not normal accounting. It looks more like a coded message." At the same time, Scooby and Shaggy were in the massive kitchen, its massive fireplace long dead. A strange rhythmic clink-clink-clink sound was coming from the walk-in pantry. Scooby's ears perked up, and he followed the sound, his nose twitching. They peered inside and saw a large, ornate metal safe built into the wall. As they watched, a ghostly figure with a long, thin finger tapped on the dial of the safe. The ghost's eyes glowed a sickly green, and it whispered in a chilling, dry rustle of a voice. "Waste not, want not." Scooby and Shaggy screamed, grabbing each other in a frantic embrace. Velma heard the scream and came running, her eyes glued to the notebook in her hand. Jinkies, what was that? As she rounded the corner, her flashlight beam landed on a faint, almost invisible scratch mark on the floor near a heavy, antique bookshelf. The mark led to a discreet, almost imperceptible seam in the wood paneling. The rhythmic thrumming sound was now coming from behind it. Velma's eyes went wide. She'd found it. The first real clue. "Again, look," she shouted, her voice trembling slightly. Fred and Daphne rushed over. As they stared at the hidden panel, it began to slide open on its own, revealing a dark, musty space. From within, the scent of old paper and something strangely sweet filled the air once more. The sound of the rhythmic thrumming intensified, almost like a machine in motion. They cautiously peered into the darkness, a feeling of both dread and excitement bubbling up. What they saw inside made them freeze in their tracks. It wasn't a fortune in gold or jewels. It was something far more peculiar. The small secret room was anything but what they expected. Instead of stacks of gold bars or diamond-encrusted chests, it was a meticulous, dust-covered office. A large wooden desk stood in the center, and on its surface lay stacks of old leather-bound ledgers, a single quill pen, and a large abacus. The air was cool and still, smelling faintly of paper and a sharp, inky scent. The rhythmic thrumming sound was gone, replaced by a low, mechanical hum coming from a vent in the corner. "Like, what a ripoff," Shaggy whined, his stomach rumbling. "No gold, no jewels, just a bunch of boring old books." "Boring?" Velma exclaimed, her eyes gleaming as she picked up a ledger. "Jinkies. These aren't just ledgers. They're Blackwood's personal financial records. But the numbers don't make any sense. They're all over the place. Look at this one. Invested $1,000 in Project Chimera. Risk. High. Outcome. $0. It's a record of bad financial decisions." Daphne knelt down and ran her fingers over the surface of the desk. "Look, this isn't just a simple office. The top layer of dust has been recently disturbed. Someone's been in here. And what's this?" She pulled out a drawer that was slightly ajar and found a handful of small, perfectly folded pieces of paper. They looked like tiny versions of dollar bills, complete with intricate patterns. "Wow, mini money. Like for ants or something?" Shaggy asked, his eyes wide. "No, Shaggy," Velma said, picking one up. "The paper is too rough, and the ink, it's smudged on the edges. These are prototypes for counterfeit money. Daphne, your observation skills are great. That's a key clue. It's a distraction. The ghost story about the miser is just a way to keep people away from this illegal operation." Fred, meanwhile, was examining the room's layout. If this is a money laundering operation, there must be a larger, more sophisticated setup somewhere else in the house. We should split up to cover more ground. Velma, you and Daphne follow these weird entries in the ledgers and see if they lead to any specific locations. Scooby and Shaggy, you two try to find a larger room or a workshop. Look for anything that could be a counterfeiting press. We're okay, Scooby said with a nervous gulp. As they separated, Scooby and Shaggy's search was predictably focused on food. They found a dumbwaiter in a nearby hallway, a relic of a more glamorous time. Like, maybe this goes down to a kitchen with some leftover food, Shaggy said, pulling on the rope. The dumbwaiter lurched upward, and a loud, mournful creak echoed from above. Just as the doors opened, a chilling moan filled the hallway, and the ghostly figure of Blackwood appeared. It didn't float. It moved with a jerky, unnatural gait. In its hands, it held a small black box that hummed with a low frequency. The ghost's eyes, the same sickly green from before, seemed to fix on Shaggy and Scooby, and a long, bony finger pointed at them with an accusatory gesture. Fake money, Scooby whimpered, pointing at a stack of freshly printed bills the ghost was now holding. The ghost threw its head back and let out a blood-curdling wail. It then began to toss the counterfeit bills around the hallway like confetti, creating a confusing and distracting scene. Shaggy and Scooby shrieked in terror and took off running. Like, he's got a whole printing press, Shaggy yelped as they sprinted, dodging the fluttering bills. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind them, and the lights in the hallway went out. The ghost was nowhere to be seen, but the rhythmic thrumming was back, this time much louder, and it was coming from the floor beneath them. A trapdoor in the floor creaked open just behind them, and a set of green glowing eyes stared up from the black void, followed by a menacing, inhuman growl. Scooby and Shaggy screeched to a halt, their feet scrambling on the polished floor. The glowing eyes stared up at them from the darkness of the open trapdoor. With a terrified yelp, the two friends scrambled away, tripping over each other in their panic. The gang, hearing the commotion, came running from their respective directions. What happened? Who's there? Fred demanded, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Like, it was a ghost, man. A super scary ghost with glowing eyes. Shaggy babbled, his body shaking like a bowl of jello. And it was holding a bunch of money. Daphne's face was serious. Wait, the ghost was holding money? Are you sure it wasn't just a regular person dressed as a ghost? It looked like a ghost. It moaned like a ghost. It was a ghost, Scooby insisted, hiding behind Shaggy's trembling legs. Velma, ever the pragmatist, knelt by the trapdoor. Whatever it was, it's not in here now. But you two were right about one thing. Shaggy, there's a sound coming from down there. It's too rhythmic to be a ghost. It sounds like some kind of machinery. I think we just found the counterfeiting operation. She shined her flashlight into the dark opening. The ghost must be in on it. They're using the legend to keep people away from their illegal business. Fred nodded, his brow furrowed. That makes sense. It's a classic risk-reward scenario. The risk is that someone finds their operation, and the reward is a massive, illegal fortune. But what are those strange ledgers for? What does 3 Sigma event mean? Velma frowned. It's not just a coded message for money laundering, Fred. I've been thinking about it. These are a record of failures. Project Chimera. A massive investment with 0 return. It's a record of bad judgment. What if the person behind this isn't just a counterfeiter, but someone who's already lost everything? She looked up at the gang. This is probably a desperate act, and desperate people are dangerous. As they discussed, a low, rasping sound came from the end of the hall. The ghostly figure of the miser emerged from the shadows, its empty sockets glowing green. But this time, it wasn't just moaning. It was holding a large metal wrench and dragging it along the wall, creating a deafening, metallic screech that made everyone cringe. Scooby and Shaggy shrieked and took off running down a different hallway. "Like, we're sharing the same fear right now, Scoob," Shaggy said, their footsteps echoing. Velma's eyes widened as she noticed a flash of light reflecting off the wrench. It wasn't just a tool. It had a strange geometric pattern engraved on the handle. "Wait a minute. That's the same pattern I saw on the counterfeit bills," she yelled. "The ghost ... It's not a ghost at all. It's the counterfeiter." Suddenly, the ghostly figure turned its head, and the low, menacing growl rattled from its chest. It started to pursue Scooby and Shaggy at a shockingly fast speed. As the two friends ran, they stumbled into a small, open-door room. They didn't see the heavy iron bars behind the door as the ghost slammed it shut, the sound of the metal clanging against the stone echoing through the house. Scooby and Shaggy were trapped. Daphne's eyes went wide. "Oh no. They're in the old boiler room. That door is locked from the outside. Fred, we need to get to them. Fast." The ghost turned its head and moaned, a low, chilling sound that seemed to be a warning. They had trapped the wrong people. Now, the rest of the gang was in a race against the clock to save their friends before the ghostly villain returned to finish them off. The iron door clanged shut, a final, chilling sound that resonated through the manor. Fred, Velma, and Daphne stood frozen, the reality of the situation sinking in. They were separated from their friends, and a menacing figure was somewhere nearby. "Jinkies, we have to find a way to open that door," Velma said, frantically looking around. "No time," Fred said, his voice firm. "We need to set a trap. Now. The ghost is probably headed back to the secret room or the printing press. We can use what we have in the manor to catch him. We need to be smart, and we need to work together. It's like a shared economy gang. We all have different resources and skills we can bring to the table." Daphne's eyes lit up. "Wait, I have an idea. That huge chandelier in the foyer. If we could get it to fall, it could trap someone underneath it." "Good thinking, Daphne," Fred replied. "That's a classic strategy. Let's start with a diversion to lure him into the foyer. Velma, can you use your knowledge of the ghost's route to predict where he'll come from?" Velma nodded, looking at her notes. "Based on the scratch marks on the floor, the ghost seems to stick to a path between the foyer, the study, and the boiler room. Our best bet is to lure him back to the foyer and catch him there." They quickly began to assemble the trap. Fred worked on the rope system to release the chandelier, tying knots and pulleys he'd seen in old movies. Daphne found a large, heavy tapestry and unrolled it on the floor, hoping to create a slippery surface. "This is a great example of using what we have, not what we think we need," she explained, a wry smile on her face. "It's like saving your money by using things you already own instead of buying new ones." Meanwhile, trapped in the boiler room, Shaggy and Scooby had to think fast. The room was small and dusty, filled with old pipes and metal valves. "Like, what are we gonna do, Scoob?" Shaggy whimpered. "We're trapped in here." Scooby, looking around, noticed a small, rusty spigot. He put his ear to it and heard a faint, rhythmic hissing sound. Raider," he said, pointing to the spigot. "Water? What good is water, Scoob?" Scooby grabbed a large metal pan and held it under the spigot, turning it slightly. The hissing sound grew louder, and a thin stream of water trickled out, quickly filling the pan. Shaggy looked at him, then at the hissing spigot. "Like, you're a genius, Scoob. We can use this to make a distraction. We have to divide our resources. One of us will make noise, and the other will try to find a way out." They worked together, their fear giving way to a strange burst of creative energy. They managed to create a small makeshift water sprayer. Just as they were finishing, they heard footsteps approaching the door. The thumping from the walls was back, louder than ever. Fred, Velma, and Daphne waited in the foyer, their trap set. The sound of the ghost's approach was getting closer and closer. Suddenly, a loud whoosh and a spray of water shot out from a small vent near the ceiling. The ghost shrieked in surprise and dodged the spray, which gave the rest of the gang a chance to see it. It was a man in a full-body suit, his hands holding a strange box-like device. The ghost was so distracted by the unexpected spray that he turned and walked right into the path of the chandelier. Fred pulled the rope, and the chandelier swung down with a mighty crash. But instead of trapping the ghost, it missed by mere inches, the ghost having sidestepped the trap at the last moment. The ghostly figure let out a low, menacing chuckle. They had been outsmarted. The game was on. The ghost, having narrowly dodged the chandelier, let out a low, triumphant groan and lunged towards the gang. A frantic chase ensued, a chaotic ballet of dodging and weaving through the dusty furniture of the mansion. Fred, Velma, and Daphne scattered, each trying to find a new angle to catch the agile villain. "Zoinks, he's fast!" Shaggy exclaimed as he and Scooby burst out of the boiler room, having managed to unscrew a pipe and slip through a small crevice in the wall. "Very fast," Scooby added, seeing the ghostly figure glide past them in a blur of motion. Fred shouted, "Everybody scatter. We'll confuse him and try to lead him toward the library." Velma, ever the thinker, was a few steps ahead. She had noticed the ghost was holding something shiny in his hand. As he passed her, she ducked, and her hand shot out, swiping the object from his grasp. It was a small, ornate key. "Got it," she yelled, but the ghost didn't seem to care. He simply let out a low growl and continued his pursuit. Daphne, seeing her opportunity, used her keen eye for design. She noticed a loose runner rug near the foot of the stairs. As the ghost raced down the steps, she quickly slid her foot under the rug and pulled. The ghost, unprepared for the change in footing, stumbled, his feet getting tangled in the folds of the heavy rug. He let out a surprised, frustrated yelp and went tumbling head over heels down the last few steps, crashing into a small table with a loud bam. The group converged on the fallen figure, pulling off the black suit and revealing the person underneath. It wasn't a ghost at all, but a middle-aged man with a slick-back hairstyle and a nervous, shifty look in his eyes. He groaned as he sat up. It's the real estate agent from town," Velma exclaimed. "Mr. Grumpington. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids." Mr. Grumpington spat, his voice no longer a ghostly moan but a bitter human hiss. "I don't know who you are, but you've just cost me a fortune." Scooby-Doo, seeing his chance, suddenly lunged forward, not out of fear, but to retrieve the very large, very real ham sandwich that had been knocked out of Mr. Grumpington's hand during the fall. He had been using it as bait. "Rrr, sandwich!" Scooby barked triumphantly, and the gang laughed. Velma held up the small key she had snatched from him. "Your ghost wasn't after us, ... It was after a key. And I bet this key fits the lock on that safe in the kitchen. But why go through all this trouble?" Mr. Grumpington, seeing the gig was up, sighed in defeat. "I was an investor, a very, very bad one. I lost everything I had in a series of disastrous schemes. I got so desperate that I stumbled upon a secret in this mansion. The ledgers weren't fake at all. Blackwood's real treasure wasn't money. It was his method for making it. He had a small, custom-built machine that could perfectly replicate currency, and he kept a coded record of all the money he made and lost on bad investments to make it look like he was just a bad manager, not a criminal. He was using the legend of his ghost to keep people away from his secret vault." Velma's eyes widened as she connected the dots. Jinkies. That's it. The 3 Sigma event wasn't a financial term. It was the serial number of the special paper he used to print the money. And the humming sound was the printing press. And the ghost costume was a theatrical device to scare away people like us. Mr. Grumpington, you weren't trying to scare us away from the treasure. You were trying to scare us away from your crime. All the pieces fit together now. Mr. Grumpington, now handcuffed, hung his head in shame. "I lost everything. I thought I could get it back and more by using Blackwood's machine. The ghost story was my brilliant idea. I used a wireless speaker for the moans and a projector for the shadows, all to keep people away. Well, you almost had us, Fred admitted, but a slight smirk played on his lips. But we always find a way to work together. And your plan had a big financial flaw. It's a criminal activity. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy were already in the kitchen, feasting on the massive ham sandwich. Like, you know what, Scoob? This sandwich is way better than all that ghost stuff, Shaggy said, taking a huge bite. And it's real, Scooby added. Daphne sighed contentedly. Well, I guess the real secret of Blackwood Manor wasn't a fortune in gold, but a good lesson. It's not about how much money you have, but about how you manage it. I'm thinking of setting up a savings account for my allowance from now on. You know, like save up for something big instead of just spending it all on small stuff. Velma, ever the educator, pushed her glasses up her nose and smiled. That's exactly it, Daphne. Blackwood was a miser, but his wealth wasn't in the treasure he had, but in the lessons he taught, even if he didn't mean to. The biggest mistake wasn't the printing press. It was the greed that led Mr. Grumpington to use it. The true value of money isn't just what it can buy. It's the security and freedom it can provide when you handle it wisely. The riches of the mansion weren't physical wealth. They were a moral lesson about the dangers of scams and easy money. When you don't save, and you're reckless with your finances, you run the risk of losing it all. Fred looked at the still-open trapdoor. So, what do you say, gang? Are we ready for a new mystery? I hear there's a haunted library in town with a ghost who steals overdue books. Shaggy and Scooby exchanged a nervous glance. Like, I don't know, man. Are the books about saving money? 'Cause that's one ghost I don't want to mess with, Shaggy said, and Scooby let out a nervous laugh. Fred just smiled. Don't worry, Shaggy. I've already got a plan. We'll check it out tomorrow, after a nice big breakfast. The kind you can only buy with money you've saved. He gave a wink, and the gang piled back into the mystery machine, ready for their next adventure. The moon peeked through the clouds, casting a silver glow on the now silent Blackwood Manor, its secrets finally revealed, and its lessons learned.